I am happy to be here today for the valedictory of the centenary celebration of the Catholic Association of South Canada. I thank Ambassador Eric Gonzalez for having invited me for this important function. As the CASK completes 100 years of its existence, it must be commended for establishing itself as a vibrant institution for promoting general welfare not only of the Mangalorean Catholic community, but all segments of society in this region. I understand that the association has provided valued services to the people in the field of health and education, especially to the deprived and marginalized sections of society, irrespective of religion, caste, or creed. It has also focused on supporting the local culture, including Konkani language and literature, music, and fine arts. Above all, it has been an effective vehicle for uniting the community and providing it a coherent voice on issues of interest and concern. Our land, ladies and gentlemen, is blessed to have almost all the great religions coexisting peacefully and prospering here for centuries. Christianity is one of the great religions of the world. We received its divine message in the year 52 AD, when the Apostle St. Thomas is believed to have landed in the Malabar coast. Since then, the Catholic community in India has been an important part of our country's social mosaic. Members of the community are fully integrated in the national mainstream. They have served the nation with great distinction in every walk of life. The Christian faith has strengthened our secular fabric and enriched our composite Indian identity. The contribution of the Christian Church in social and charitable work in our country, especially in education and health sectors, has been particularly noteworthy. The CASK has carried forward the rich legacy of selfless public service inspired by the message of Jesus Christ, who, over 2,000 years ago, spread the truth of fundamental unity of mankind and preached the cherished human values of love, compassion, forgiveness, and charity. It is for this message that Mahatma Gandhi called Jesus Christ the greatest teacher humanity has ever had. I applaud the CASK for the outstanding work over the last century. I am sanguine that it will continue on the same path of selfless service for the next 100 years and beyond. Our country faces many challenges, of which none is bigger than poverty and unemployment. The Catholic Association could look into expanding its areas of work for health and education to skill development and employment generation. Every contribution, irrespective of its scale, would go some way in addressing this scourge of poverty which afflicts a very large percentage of our population. On this happy occasion, I convey my heartiest congratulations to the patron of CASK, His Lordship Aloysius Paul D'Souza, the current president, other office bearers, and members of the association. I salute the founders and all those who have nurtured the association over the past 100 years. I again thank Ambassador Gonsalves and the organizers for inviting me. I wish the association many more years of fruitful work and contribution in the service of the people and betterment of our society. Jai Hind. The next generation and the generations after that familiar with it, not in a narrow sense but in the broadest possible sense. The difficulty regrettably has been that in the last decade or so we have focused too much on job-oriented education. Now, everybody has to make a living, everybody has to find means of sustenance. But what used to be known as liberal education in an earlier generation, of giving a wider exposure to the young mind, but something more, is unfortunately getting lost. And we are paying the price of far too many young people having a tunnel vision. Within the tunnel, their vision is very good. But beyond that, they grope. And then they fall victim to the easiest misrepresentation that comes their way in a weekly or fortnightly magazine, if not the newspaper. So we need to do that. The objective was right. We have not been able to implement it sufficiently.
40,000 crores we spend on foreign education, whereas the civil subjects which are known, on them hardly some 200 or 300 crores are spent. So I don't know how it is going.
Well, it is, you see, the budgeting process, the political decision-making process is inevitably a mirror image of the prevailing trends. We all fall victim to it because that is perceived to be the right thing to do.
What do you think is the contribution Sufism can make to our composite culture?
Sufism is the term which is used in Islamic or Muslim discourse to what is otherwise known as mysticism. Mysticism has been there in all systems of faith because the basis of it is that you have to go beyond the obvious. Every faith prescribes a system of do's and don'ts, certain rituals, certain procedures, certain textbooks, if I may say so. But then there have always been people who have wanted to go beyond that. And if you have to go beyond that, then you have to start thinking about the larger purpose which the God or the Creator had in his or her mind. That is what Sufism is all about. Now, how does it translate into practice? How does any mystical order translate into practice? It begins with the simplest. God's creatures. There you don't draw lines. Whether you go to Christian mysticism, Hindu mysticism, Islamic mysticism or mysticism in any other faith in the world, you start with the humble human being. And therefore the next question is, what can I do to make the life of that humble human being a little better, a little more meaningful? Every mystic saint throughout history has taught the same thing. And if you put the messages together, the script may be different, the message is the same. So I think, since your question is on Sufism, the answer is that this has been part of the Indian tradition for at least 600-700 years, and the proof of it is to visit the well-known Sufi shrines across the length and breadth of India. The Sufi might have belonged to a particular faith. He may have been a Muslim. But just at random, take a reading on the lines of people who go there. You will find that they belong to all faiths in India. And perhaps, if you do a head count, the number of Muslims may be less than the number of others. Because there is a deep-rooted faith. And you see it right starting from Punjab, going right down to Kerala and all other parts of the country. So it fulfills a genuinely felt human need.
Sir, according to you, what should be the Indian government's policy towards Iraq and Syria?
I think you will find a few government statements carefully worded, but reiterating the same basic policy. There are 2-3 basic ingredients of that policy which have not changed over years. It have not changed with changes of government. This is Indian approach. 1, you don't interfere in affairs of other states. B, you cannot be arbitrary and presumptive and assume that you have all the knowledge in your mind and everybody else is an idiot. We don't think interference is a good thing. We have taken this line consistently. Interference should not be done. If an occasion for it arises, then it has to be properly sanctioned by the only international agency we have to do that, and that is the United Nations.
Sir, I want to know that why the other silsilas of Sufism is not so popular as Chishtiya.
I am out of my depth there. But I think it's a historical accident, nothing more. Moinuddin Chishti found his way to India, just as a great many people in the past had found their way to India. Because India was always seen as, the source of the intellectually unknown. So a lot of people came to India, traveling on their own, begging their way through or whatever means they adopted. His silsila became popular in India, but there have been other silsilas which are all equally relevant because they ultimately go back to the same source. But I don't know if that satisfies your query, but I think it's a historical accident. It's nothing more than that. If you go to a country like Morocco, where again Sufism is very prevalent, you will find other silsilas there, you will find other silsilas in Egypt, in Turkey. Turkey has a very old tradition dating back to Rumi. But they are all about the same. You know, I visited Turkey a few years back, and I went to Konya, where Rumi's mausoleum is. I did some reading in that context, and I discovered that the Moinuddin Chishti, Rumi, and Sant Kabir, they were more or less contemporaries. 40, 50, 60 years separated them. Now, three different surroundings, three different landscapes. Why did they think more or less along the same lines? And why did they teach along the same lines? That is the point.
Bringing back again focus to our India and our cultural traditions. As a student, we used to learn about what Nehru used to say, that unity in diversity. As a professor, I've taught to my students. But today, in our times, increasingly I feel that on one hand, we enjoy the richness of our plural traditions, but at the same time, there are tensions in the diversities, and these tensions become perhaps too intense at times. But still, somehow or other, we have managed. So I would like to know what, in your opinion, is the unifying thread, if any, which keeps us together.
There is a couplet of the poet Iqbal. कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे ज़मा हमारा. I think we start with ground reality. The ground reality is a plural society. Nobody has created it. Maybe God created it. But the plurality of our society is a given fact. Now, if we have a plural society, then any structures and superstructures that you build on it can either be stable or less stable. I think our effort since independence has been to build a structure which is stable, which takes the diversities into account, which does not try to disown any kind of diversity, which does not try to unnecessarily prioritize segments of diversity. Because how do you decide what is, as an individual, what is your priority? As a citizen, what is your priority? Yes, as a citizen, we all have one unquestioned priority. We are citizens of this land. We are bound by the basic law of this land. We are bound by the values inscribed in the Constitution of India. That is unquestioned. But beyond that, what is the language I speak at home? What is the food I eat at home? What is the kind of interaction I do with fellow citizens? Who can stop me from becoming a hermit and not interacting with anybody? And so on and so forth. I mean, how do you relate a person living in Kanyakumari with somebody who's living in northern reaches of Kashmir? It is a joint subscription to a structure which accommodates. Some years back, we had a visitor in Delhi, Chancellor Merkel of Germany. And she asked me a very pointed question: how do you make it work? So I said, Chancellor, it's not that difficult. She said, no, we are having great trouble in Europe. So what is your recipe? And I said, our recipe is a simple one. We make the circle as wide as possible so that no one is outside the circle. The moment we try to shorten the circle, troubles arise. Somebody is in, somebody is out. And I think this has been the time-honored tradition of India. It's not something that was invented by our founding fathers. The founding fathers accepted that reality. And having accepted that reality, they built on it. And that is what sustains us. Thank you. Thank you very much.